Ethan wiped the grease from his hands and leaned back against the cold metal wall of the mining station, squinting at the asteroid field outside the viewport. He had spent months on this remote asteroid colony, fixing machines, maintaining mining equipment, and keeping the generators alive. It was a quiet life, far from the chaos of the major star systems, and he liked it that way. There was little excitement, but there was also little danger. Most days were predictable. Until today. A faint blip on his scanner drew his attention. He frowned, leaning closer to the console. It wasn't a usual signal. It pulsed weakly, like a heartbeat buried under layers of static. Ethan adjusted the frequency and isolated the signal. It was coming from a nearby asteroid cluster, one that hadn't been mapped in detail. Most people avoided it because the rocks shifted unpredictably, and a single wrong move could crush a ship like a tin can. But Ethan's curiosity was stronger than caution. He grabbed his maintenance suit and helmet, double-checked the tools in his belt, and activated the small propulsion pack strapped to his back. The suit hissed softly as it sealed. He opened the airlock and stepped into the void. The familiar thrill of weightlessness and the eerie silence of space filled him with both awe and a tinge of fear. He guided himself carefully toward the cluster, keeping an eye on the blinking signal. It didn't take long to spot the source. Half hidden behind jagged rocks was a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. Its hull was smooth and metallic, reflecting the dim starlight in shimmering patterns. Strange markings glowed faintly along its surface, almost like veins of light running through metal. The vessel was clearly damaged. Several panels were torn, and one of its engines leaked a soft green mist into space. Ethan floated closer, his heart pounding. He activated his scanner again, running a full diagnostic on the ship. The readings were astonishing. The energy core was still active, though unstable. Life support systems were flickering. The ship was clearly intelligent. It had automated repairs that had partially worked, but the damage was beyond its self-repairing capabilities. Ethan's mind raced. Whoever, or whatever, owned this ship had technology far beyond anything humans had developed. And here it was, stranded and vulnerable. Ethan hesitated only for a moment. His curiosity and his natural instinct to fix things overrode any fear. He carefully attached a tether to the ship's hull and began inspecting the damaged areas. The panels resisted his tools at first, as if they sensed the intrusion, but Ethan was patient. He adapted, using combinations of spanners, plasma welders, and improvised connectors. Every adjustment sent tiny pulses of light across the ship's surface, like it was reacting to his presence. As he worked, the ship's internal systems slowly began to power up. A soft hum filled the cockpit, low at first, then rising until it resonated through Ethan's chest. Lights flickered along the floor and walls, revealing a sleek interior filled with alien machinery. Touchscreens, holographic panels, and tubes of glowing energy crisscrossed the room. Ethan reached out instinctively, tapping a panel that looked damaged. Immediately, a holographic projection flickered into existence. It was a figure, a woman, regal and imposing, wearing a crown-like headpiece and flowing garments that shimmered with the same light as the ship's markings. She appeared to look directly at Ethan, though her expression was unreadable. He stumbled backward in shock, nearly dropping his tools. Her image spoke in a language he could not understand, and yet somehow the tone carried a weight of authority and urgency. For a moment, Ethan froze. He had stumbled upon something incredible, something he didn't fully understand. The ship was clearly designed to protect and preserve her in case of disaster. The hologram repeated a series of movements, gestures he didn't recognize, but it was clear she was trying to communicate. Ethan shook his head and focused on the repairs. He didn't know her language, but he knew the ship, at least enough to stabilize its systems. Hours passed. Ethan worked tirelessly, improvising solutions when the alien technology resisted. He rewired circuits, replaced damaged components, and even fashioned a makeshift energy conduit using materials from the ship itself. Slowly, systems began to stabilize. Lights stopped flickering, hums steadied into consistent pulses, and the ship's interior seemed to glow with quiet power. Ethan leaned against a console, exhausted but exhilarated. He had done it. Then, the hologram shifted. The figure's posture changed, almost as if she were leaning forward to observe him more closely. Ethan noticed that small panels across the room flickered, displaying alien symbols he couldn't read. The ship was alive, aware, and it was acknowledging him. He felt a shiver run down his spine. He had repaired an alien ship, maybe the most advanced vessel in the sector, and it was alive in a way that no human creation had ever been. Ethan's attention returned to the console in front of him. He traced a series of lines across the touch-sensitive surface, attempting to access the navigation system. The interface responded, though in strange ways, displaying holographic maps of star systems he had never seen. Planets glowed with colors he could not name, and paths connected stars in geometric patterns that defied his instincts. The ship was more than a transport. It was a fortress, a palace, a command center all in one. As he studied the maps, Ethan noticed subtle shifts in the ship's hum. The energy core had stabilized, but only just. He would need to continue repairs, reinforce the power distribution, and test propulsion. His mind raced with possibilities. If he succeeded, he could move this ship through space. If he failed, he didn't want to imagine the consequences. While working, Ethan reflected on his own life. He had always been content with fixing machines, but he never imagined repairing a ship of this caliber. It was as if fate had placed him here for a reason. There was no turning back now. He adjusted a delicate circuit, and the ship responded with a low, melodic tone that seemed almost like approval. Ethan laughed softly, exhaustion mixed with awe. He was not just fixing this ship. He was communicating with it in the only language he knew, understanding, patience, and skill. Suddenly, the hologram flickered again, this time showing more of the Queen's environment. A room behind her seemed like a throne chamber, grand and vast, with light streaming through enormous windows. Ethan realized the scale of the ship. It wasn't just a vessel for travel, it was a mobile palace. He marveled at the thought, imagining an alien queen walking these halls, commanding fleets, governing worlds, all from this extraordinary ship. Ethan continued his work, carefully reconnecting damaged conduits and aligning energy matrices. Every movement required precision. One mistake could overload the core or trigger a defensive system. As he worked, he began to notice something remarkable. The ship's technology seemed almost intuitive. It adapted to his methods, responding more smoothly than any machine he had ever encountered. He realized that his human instincts, the way he approached repairs, the way he improvised, were compatible with alien design in a way that no other alien could manage. Hours blurred together. Time in the void felt meaningless, marked only by the rhythm of his tools and the soft glow of the ship's systems. Finally, he reached the final section of the repairs, the propulsion matrix. The engine was damaged, leaking energy, and the stabilizers were offline. Ethan set to work, connecting makeshift conduits, recalibrating power flow, and carefully testing each adjustment. Sparks flew, but he persisted, driven by determination and a sense of wonder. At last, the engine hummed steadily, its green mist dissipating into a gentle glow. The ship shuddered lightly as if testing its own systems. Panels lit up in sequence and a soft voice, automated, melodic, emerged, translating fragments of the Queen's words. Stabilization complete, consciousness preserved. Ethan stared in disbelief. He had done it. The Queen, whoever she was, had survived because of him. The realization hit him slowly. This was no ordinary alien vessel. He had repaired a ship that could belong only to someone of immense importance. A ruler, a commander. A being whose survival could change the balance of power in the galaxy. And he, a lone human mechanic, had made the difference. Ethan floated in the cockpit, letting the hum of the ship surround him. The Queen's hologram remained, her eyes, though digital, seeming to follow him. He felt a strange connection, not just to the ship, but to the life it protected. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was part of something far larger than himself, something extraordinary. As he prepared to finish the final checks, a subtle vibration ran through the deck. The ship responded to his touch, stabilizing its energy core. Ethan smiled, exhausted but triumphant. He had repaired a vessel far beyond human design, and in doing so, had unknowingly drawn the attention of an alien queen who would remember his skill, his courage, and his ingenuity. For the first time in his life, Ethan understood that humans had an advantage that no other species could replicate: instinct, creativity, and the courage to act when everything else seemed impossible. This ship, and the queen it protected, would never forget him. And neither would the galaxy, though he did not yet realize how much his life, and perhaps the lives of millions, was about to change. Ethan floated back to the control panel, preparing to power up the navigation systems. The asteroid cluster loomed outside, dangerous and unpredictable, but he felt ready. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it with the tools he had, the mind he had, and the bravery that had carried him this far. Somewhere deep within the ship, the Queen's consciousness stirred, aware that a human had touched her vessel and survived, and perhaps, just perhaps, proved worthy. And so, in the silent expanse of space, a human mechanic completed the impossible. He repaired a ship that no one else could. He awakened a queen who had been trapped and vulnerable. And in doing so, he set in motion events that would change not only his life but the course of the stars themselves. Ethan took a deep breath inside his helmet, staring out at the endless blackness dotted with distant stars. He didn't know what would come next, but for the first time, he felt that he was part of something bigger than himself. He had stepped into the unknown and survived. The ship's hum had settled into a steady rhythm, and Ethan floated in the cockpit, examining the complex array of holographic controls that stretched before him. The alien queen's image shimmered nearby, no longer a flickering projection but fully formed, appearing almost lifelike. She stood silently, her eyes fixed on him with a mixture of curiosity, caution, and something he could not identify. Ethan swallowed hard. The translation interface had activated again, and fragments of her words began to appear on a floating panel. Recognition, human intervention, unexpected. The tone was formal, but there was an unmistakable undertone of intrigue. Ethan realized that this wasn't just a ship. It was sentient in some way, capable of monitoring and evaluating him. Every decision, every movement he made was being observed. He took a deep breath and spoke, testing the voice translator. I just wanted to help. Your ship was damaged, I fixed it. His voice sounded small in the vast chamber, but the words carried honesty. The Queen's gaze softened slightly, though her posture remained regal and composed. The interface translated again. Assistance, not expected. Human, adaptive, rare. She stepped closer to the projection center, her movements graceful, deliberate. Ethan felt a strange sense of presence, as if her attention alone weighed on him. The ship seemed to respond to her mood, lights dimming and pulsing with the rhythm of her awareness. As Ethan continued his work, he explored more of the ship's systems. Panels displayed star maps, fleet positions, and data streams he could barely comprehend. The ship was not only advanced, it was a command vessel, capable of coordinating entire fleets and analyzing entire star systems in real time. Ethan's fingers moved over the controls with care, instinct guiding him even when logic failed. While stabilizing the navigation core, Ethan noticed small inconsistencies in the ship's energy flows. Some conduits had been rigged in ways he could not fully understand, suggesting emergency measures taken during the crash. He worked meticulously, rerouting power, balancing circuits, and improvising solutions using parts from damaged sections. With each adjustment, the ship responded, and the Queen's hologram shifted as though approving of his methods. Hours passed, and the asteroid field outside began to change. Ethan saw shadows moving on distant rocks, energy readings that indicated approaching ships. He froze for a moment, checking his scanner. A fleet of unknown vessels was closing in fast, their signatures aggressive, weapons ready. Panic flared in him, but he forced himself to stay calm. The Queen was still observing, and the ship itself seemed to hum with readiness. He activated the defensive protocols, though many were unfamiliar. Automated drones stirred within their compartments, energy shields pulsed along the hull, and hidden weapon bays slowly opened. The ship seemed to recognize Ethan's intentions, responding to him in ways that were almost intuitive. The Queen's hologram floated beside him, her expression now a mixture of concern and astonishment. The communication panel blinked again, displaying fragments of her voice. Rogue faction, ambush, survival imperative, human pilot necessity. Ethan realized that she was telling him that the approaching fleet was there to destroy her and take the ship. The situation was more dangerous than he had imagined. He swallowed, focusing on the controls. He took a deep breath and addressed the Queen, testing the translator. "I can get you out of here. I just need to know how to steer this thing." The hologram's eyes narrowed slightly, and a subtle shimmer of light ran across her image. She gestured toward a panel, and a series of symbols and glowing paths appeared, highlighting trajectories and options. Ethan traced the paths with his fingers, absorbing the information as quickly as he could. The fleet was closer now. Blasts of energy streaked past the outer hull, bouncing harmlessly off the initial defensive shields. Ethan's pulse raced. He had never piloted anything like this before, and the controls were unlike any human ship. Yet something in the design responded to instinct, and he felt his confidence growing. He could feel the ship as if it were an extension of his own body. The first wave of enemy ships engaged directly. Ethan pushed the ship into evasive maneuvers, weaving between asteroid spires and using the vessel's advanced thrusters to gain speed. The alien fleet underestimated him, expecting the Queen to be the only force of significance. They had not anticipated a human pilot with the courage to act decisively under pressure. Lyra, the Queen, remained calm, her holographic figure hovering near the console. Her eyes never left Ethan, analyzing each movement, each decision. She had witnessed countless battles, commanded legions of warriors, yet she found herself impressed by the human's adaptability. He was unpredictable, intuitive, and bold, qualities she rarely saw outside her own species. Ethan adjusted the ship's weapons, testing targeting systems and defensive measures. Small drones launched from compartments, intercepting incoming attacks and neutralizing them before they could reach the hull. Energy shields flickered under sustained fire, but the vessel held firm. Ethan guided it with precision, improvising maneuvers that even Lyra had not anticipated. During a particularly tense moment, a large enemy cruiser locked onto the ship, firing a concentrated energy beam. Ethan acted without hesitation. He diverted power from non-essential systems to the shields, calculated the angle of the asteroid field, and pushed the ship into a daring loop, using the debris to block the attack. The beam struck a rock instead, exploding in a shower of sparks. Ethan's chest heaved as adrenaline surged, and he felt a thrill unlike any he had experienced before. The Queen's voice, translated through the ship, reached him in fragments. Human, daring, exceptional, instinctual. Ethan didn't fully understand the meaning, but the tone was unmistakable. She was impressed. And perhaps something more, an acknowledgement of respect, maybe even trust. As the first wave of attackers retreated, Ethan realized they were not finished. Additional ships were closing in, faster and more numerous than before. The ship's energy core was holding, but only just. He quickly assessed the damage and began emergency repairs mid-flight, reconnecting circuits and stabilizing the power flow. Sparks flew, but he moved calmly, guided by instinct and experience. The Queen remained close, her image occasionally shifting as if to provide insight, though she did not touch the controls. Hours blurred together. Time and space became a series of calculations, adjustments, and improvisations. Ethan's human ingenuity allowed him to see solutions where the ship's AI could not. He rerouted power in ways the alien systems had never accounted for, optimized the defensive patterns, and even discovered hidden propulsion vectors that allowed him to outmaneuver the attackers. Finally, the immediate threat was neutralized. The enemy ships pulled back, likely regrouping for another attempt. Ethan floated back from the controls, sweat dampening his brow, and looked at the Queen's hologram. Her expression was unreadable, yet her posture had softened slightly. There was acknowledgement there, and perhaps a hint of curiosity about this human who had survived against impossible odds. He allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but there was no time for celebration. Lyra's voice, translated again, informed him that the rogue faction was part of a larger conspiracy. They sought not only the ship but the Queen herself, intending to destabilize her empire and seize control. Ethan realized the stakes were far higher than he had imagined. He had not just repaired a ship, he had inadvertently become part of a galactic conflict with consequences far beyond his understanding. Lyra activated additional holographic panels, displaying star systems, fleet positions, and encrypted messages. Ethan studied them carefully, doing his best to understand alien strategy. While he could not comprehend every detail, he noticed patterns. Enemy ships moved predictably when faced with unexpected tactics. His human intuition combined with the ship's advanced AI allowed him to exploit these patterns. The Queen's image remained by his side, silent for long stretches, yet attentive. She did not issue orders, she observed. Ethan began to realize that she was testing him, assessing his ability to think independently, to improvise, and to take risks. Every decision he made was under scrutiny, and he felt a strange pressure, but also a sense of purpose. He was part of something larger now, an alliance of necessity, bridging species and experience. As they traveled through the outer edges of the asteroid field, Ethan began repairing secondary systems that were critical for long-term survival. Communications, navigation, and internal stabilization required constant attention. He moved through the corridors, checking conduits and energy panels, adjusting controls with a precision that even the ship seemed to recognize. The Queen's presence, though silent at times, provided an unspoken guidance, her consciousness intertwined with the vessel in a way he could sense but not fully understand. Night in space had no meaning, but hours passed, and Ethan felt exhaustion creeping in. Still, he pressed on, knowing that the survival of the Queen and the ship depended on his skills. He had become more than a mechanic. He was a pilot, a strategist, and an innovator in ways he had never imagined. The thrill of discovery, the danger of pursuit, and the challenge of alien technology pushed him to the edge of his capabilities, and he thrived under it. Finally, as they emerged from the asteroid field, the vast expanse of open space stretched before them. The rogue fleet was still in pursuit, but their numbers had diminished, giving Ethan a momentary reprieve. He guided the ship through a calculated path, using gravitational pulls from nearby planets to gain speed while conserving energy. Lyra's projection shifted slightly, a subtle nod that conveyed approval without words. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He had survived the first real test, and he had proven himself in the eyes of the Queen. He realized that humans, despite their limitations in technology compared to alien civilizations, possessed something unique: intuition, creativity, and the courage to act when everything seemed impossible. These qualities had allowed him to survive, to repair the ship, and to navigate through danger that might have overwhelmed even the most advanced alien minds. As the ship stabilized, Ethan floated back to the cockpit, reviewing the systems. There was still much work to do, repairs were ongoing, and enemy ships would return. But for the first time, he felt a sense of control. He had become an integral part of the vessel, a human presence that had altered the course of events in ways he could not yet comprehend. Lyra's voice reached him once more, this time calm, deliberate, and almost personal. Human, resilience valued. Ethan did not fully understand all the words, but the meaning was clear. He had earned respect not through force, but through skill, courage, and ingenuity. And in a universe full of unpredictable threats, that might be the most important advantage of all. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine the possibilities. This was not just a ship, it was a palace, a command center, and a fortress. And he, a human mechanic, had proven capable of mastering it. The Queen's presence, her awareness, and her acknowledgement marked the beginning of something new, a partnership born of necessity, skill, and mutual respect. Ethan took a deep breath and stared out into the void. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, filled with danger, mystery, and opportunity. And for the first time, he felt that he belonged, not just to this isolated mining station, but to something far greater. He had repaired a ship, saved a queen, and proven that humanity's ingenuity could stand alongside the most advanced civilizations. And somewhere deep within the vessel, Lyra's consciousness stirred, aware that the human at the controls was more than just a helper. He was a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of unpredictability, courage, and the rare brilliance that only humans possessed. The next battle would come, Ethan knew, but he also knew he was ready. Together with the Queen and her extraordinary ship, he would face the unknown, and perhaps, just perhaps, change the course of the galaxy itself. Ethan floated in the cockpit, his hands steady on the controls despite the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The rogue fleet that had pursued them was regrouping, visible as tiny flickers of light on the star maps. He knew they would attack again, and this time their numbers would be larger, their strategy more calculated. The stakes were higher than ever, but he felt a strange calm. The ship hummed beneath him, as if anticipating his next move, responding instinctively to his touch. Lyra's hologram hovered near the console, her eyes following his movements. She spoke through the translation system, her voice calm and measured. "Human, you have adapted beyond expectation. Our survival depends on your decisions." Ethan nodded, absorbing the weight of her words. He knew she was serious. This was no longer just a test of skill. It was a test of courage and strategy against an enemy determined to destroy them. He took a deep breath and studied the starfield before him. The rogue ships were closing in along multiple vectors, attempting to corner them. Ethan's mind raced, calculating angles, velocities, and potential evasive routes. The asteroid belt they had just escaped from had provided temporary cover, but now they were in open space. He needed a plan, and fast. He activated the ship's defensive systems fully, testing energy shields and deploying drones. Small mechanical units detached from compartments along the hull, forming a protective perimeter around the vessel. Ethan guided them with precision, coordinating their movement with the ship's thrusters. The enemy ships fired, energy beams streaking toward them, but the drones intercepted most of the attacks. Sparks flew across the shields, but the ship held firm. Lyra's voice guided him subtly. "Focus, exploit their predictability, use your instincts." Ethan understood. The alien fleet relied heavily on logic and patterns. He, however, had unpredictability on his side. Using his human intuition, he adjusted the ship's trajectory in sudden, unexpected shifts. The enemy struggled to adapt, their attacks missing more frequently with every maneuver. Ethan decided to take a calculated risk. He plotted a course that would take them through a nearby asteroid cluster, a path too dangerous for most pilots. The rogue ships hesitated, unable to follow without risking collision. Ethan maneuvered expertly, weaving between jagged rocks, using the environment to his advantage. Lyra watched silently, her holographic form shimmering with subtle approval. The enemy adapted quickly, splitting their forces to flank the ship. Ethan countered, activating hidden propulsion vectors he had discovered during earlier repairs. The ship accelerated, twisting in ways that seemed impossible for its size. Energy beams barely missed, grazing the hull and leaving streaks of molten metal. Ethan's heart pounded, but he remained focused, every decision a blend of instinct and improvisation. A larger cruiser emerged from the shadows, its energy signature massive compared to the others. It fired a concentrated beam aimed directly at the ship's core. Ethan reacted instantly, diverting power from secondary systems to reinforce the shields. Sparks and flames erupted around the console as the ship shuddered violently. He gritted his teeth and recalibrated the energy flow, stabilizing the core just as the beam struck. The shields held, though barely. Lyra's voice, calm but tinged with urgency, guided him further. Now attack, precision, human advantage. Ethan realized that this was his moment. The enemy expected evasive maneuvers, not aggression. He activated the ship's offensive systems, launching drones in coordinated strikes. They moved like extensions of the ship itself, targeting weak points in the cruiser's hull. Energy beams followed, precise and devastating, exploiting flaws that even the alien fleet had overlooked. The cruiser's shields faltered, and a massive explosion rocked its hull. Ethan felt the shockwave through the cockpit, but the ship remained stable. He allowed himself a brief smile, but there was no time to celebrate. More enemy ships were incoming, and the battle was far from over. Yet, he had learned something vital. Unpredictability and courage could overcome technology far superior to human design. Hours passed in a blur of maneuvering, attacks, and repairs. Ethan's skill and intuition guided the ship through each challenge. Lyra's presence was a constant reminder of the stakes, her holographic form offering silent guidance and occasional strategic insights. Together they moved as one, human instinct and alien technology intertwined in a seamless partnership. During a brief respite, Ethan floated through the corridors, checking critical systems. Panels flickered, energy conduits hummed, and the ship seemed to pulse with life. He realized that the vessel itself was responding to him as much as he was responding to it. The alien technology, advanced beyond comprehension, had found a match in human creativity and adaptability. He had become part of the ship, and the ship part of him. Lyra approached him, her holographic hand gesturing toward a control panel. Symbols flashed, translating partially into English. Final vector, decisive action, human capability essential. Ethan studied the display, understanding that the rogue fleet's command ship was attempting to regroup for one last strike. If they failed to act decisively, both he and the Queen could be destroyed. He took a deep breath and activated a hidden sequence he had discovered during repairs. The ship surged forward, engines roaring as energy fields expanded along the hull. Drones deployed in a complex pattern, forming a moving barrier while offensive systems prepared for a synchronized strike. Ethan's hands moved with practiced precision, guiding the ship through a deadly dance of speed, strategy, and firepower. The enemy fleet fired as one, concentrated on the human-piloted ship. Energy beams collided with shields, creating bursts of light and sparks that reflected across the cockpit. Ethan dodged and weaved, anticipating their moves, improvising maneuvers no alien pilot could predict. The ship responded instantly, as if it were alive and thinking with him. Finally, he saw an opening. The rogue fleet's command ship had exposed its core during a miscalculated maneuver. Ethan calculated the trajectory, launched a series of drones, and fired concentrated energy beams. The command ship shuddered, its shields failing under the precise assault. A massive explosion consumed it, scattering debris across the void. The remaining ships, leaderless and disorganized, retreated. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding through him. The immediate threat was over. He floated back to the cockpit console, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra's hologram shimmered before him, her expression unreadable at first. Then slowly a faint smile appeared. Human, exceptional, invaluable. Her words carried weight beyond translation, a recognition of courage, skill, and resilience. Ethan nodded, still catching his breath. He realized that he had not just repaired a ship. He had piloted it through impossible odds, saved a queen, and altered the course of a conflict that could have devastated entire systems. The magnitude of what he had achieved began to sink in. He was a human, yes, but in this moment he had become something more, a symbol of ingenuity, bravery, and unpredictability. Lyra's voice continued, calm and deliberate. Your species remarkable. You possess qualities beyond technology. Intuition, courage, adaptability. You have proven humans are formidable. Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had often been underestimated, dismissed as a simple mechanic. Now, across the stars, he had demonstrated the strength of human spirit. As the adrenaline faded, Ethan focused on stabilizing the ship. Repairs continued, though less urgent now. He monitored energy flows, reinforced damaged systems, and ensured that the navigation paths were secure. The vessel, though battered, responded perfectly to his adjustments. He realized that his connection with the ship had deepened. He understood its behavior, its systems, and its subtle responses in ways even Lyra might not have anticipated. During a quiet moment, Ethan allowed himself to ask a question. Queen Lyra, why me? Why a human? The translation system processed the query. Lyra's hologram regarded him thoughtfully. Your species unpredictable. You solve problems differently. You act without limitation, foresee outcomes beyond logic. I recognized potential essential. Ethan considered her words. Humans were often underestimated by other civilizations, but their adaptability, creativity, and courage allowed them to succeed in ways no one else could. The next hours were spent navigating the ship to a secure location within Lyra's territory. Ethan plotted courses through asteroid belts, around gas giants, and along gravitational currents, testing every system he had repaired. The rogue fleet would regroup, but they were now far behind. The Queen's empire would provide protection, but the journey had forged a bond between human and alien that neither could ignore. Lyra's hologram finally stepped back, her posture regal once more. You have saved me and my empire. Your actions will not be forgotten. Humanity now known beyond your world. Ethan smiled faintly. He had never imagined his life would lead to this. A remote asteroid mechanic now recognized across the galaxy, trusted by a queen, and capable of piloting the most advanced vessel he had ever seen. As they approached a secure docking station within Lyra's territory, Ethan prepared the ship for landing. The vessel responded perfectly to his commands, gliding smoothly despite its previous damage. Drones retracted, shields adjusted, and the engines powered down gracefully. Ethan exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of exhaustion, relief, and accomplishment. The docking completed successfully, and Lyra's hologram faded as she prepared to disembark. Ethan floated to the exit corridor, observing the grandeur of the vessel he had repaired. He marveled at its design, its resilience, and the subtle ways it had responded to him. This ship, once nearly lost, was now whole again, and he had been the one to bring it back. Lyra approached the exit chamber, turning to face him fully. "Human, you have proven extraordinary. Your skill, courage, intuition have saved me. You changed destiny." Ethan nodded, humbled. He had done what he never imagined possible. He had faced overwhelming odds, relied on his human instincts, and emerged victorious alongside an alien queen. As he prepared to leave the ship, Lyra extended a hand, a gesture of trust and respect. "Come with me, your journey continues." Ethan hesitated briefly, glancing back at the vessel. He had repaired it, piloted it, and saved its queen. Now the universe itself seemed to open before him, full of possibilities he had never dared to imagine. He took her hand, feeling the quiet gravity of the moment. Together, human and queen, mechanic and monarch, they stepped into a future where courage, ingenuity, and unpredictability could shape the fate of stars. Ethan realized then that humans, underestimated for so long, possessed something no technology, no empire, no alien species could replicate: instinct, creativity, and the will to act when the universe itself seemed impossible. And so, the human who had repaired a damaged ship became more than a mechanic. He became a symbol, a partner, and a legend. A reminder to all that humanity, in its simplicity and ingenuity, could face the impossible and prevail. The galaxy would remember his name, not for conquest or power, but for courage, brilliance, and the unpredictable spark that only a human could bring to the stars. Ethan exhaled one last time as the docking clamps engaged. The journey was far from over, but he was ready. For the first time, he understood the truth of human potential, that no matter how advanced the universe might be, ingenuity, courage, and the willingness to act were forces that no one, not even the most powerful empires, could anticipate or control. And somewhere deep within Lyra's consciousness, the Queen knew that humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not as invaders, not as conquerors, but as unpredictable, brilliant, and vital allies. As the stars shimmered beyond the viewport, Ethan looked forward, ready for whatever lay ahead. He had repaired a ship, saved a queen, and proven that humans could achieve the impossible. And now, with the galaxy before him, he was determined to see just how far that impossible could go.